Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This week we are finishing up the 1940s Corselette from the Draft at Home pattern by Mrs. Depew. We have a lot to do and a lot of video to get through, so without further ado, let's dive right in. All right, my dears, here is our original pattern exactly as it was traced out from Mrs. Depew for our 1940s Corselette. Let's talk about a couple of things that we're going to be changing about this pattern before we make the final piece. This piece here, this winged piece, remember we're going to go ahead and eliminate it. So we'll need to bring this section up and then go ahead and remove this here. That will make this a nice diamond shape in the front, which we did see in original advertisements from that period. This piece here, this is the long strip that comes into the side here, comes in like this, and then works its way down and around for the hip. We are going to go ahead and make this a straight cut insert. That's going to allow this piece to fit nicely into this area without having a pucker in the side that we really don't want. And honestly, if we wanted to, we could probably pull this all the way up and make it a long strip, which honestly might lay even nicer. And we may do that. We may even to just eliminate that corner stitching to make sure that everything continues to lay very smooth. This is an undergarment. This is tight fitting. The whole purpose of this garment is to allow your clothes to nip in and lay very smooth. And that's what we want from it. So we may choose to do that, to simply draw this line all the way up here, remove it, have two sections, this piece here and this longer piece here that go together, and then have them work their way into the pattern. So that is something we may do. These cups, and this unfortunately may be that I missed a dot in the original pattern, because as you can see, this cup here is longer than this back piece, and so I think what I'm going to do is lengthen this one instead of shortening this one. That way I have a little bit more depth in the cup. This wing here, this top portion, this is where the strap would normally attach, and we saw in those advertisements from the period that this was in fact correct, that these points were very far forward on the garments, but we know we want to move this back probably an inch or two in order to allow this to wrap around and for the strap to come up closer to the outer portion of the bust line, closer toward the armpit to prevent that side boob from happening. And then finally, the last modification to the pattern that we need to make is making the back piece bigger. So what I'm going to do, because it did inset beautifully up against the side of the front panel, is I'm simply going to lengthen the back, moving back here. That will effectively give me that additional space without changing the overall shape of the back piece for this garment. So we'll make a few alterations, removing the wing, adjusting the cup, moving this portion back, and changing this side inset. And then I think we're going to have a slam dunk on this garment. And while we are not going to inevitably be following the exact pattern that we had purchased, it will still be very accurate for the 1940s, and I feel like it will still be a very great garment for under vintage clothing. So let's get started on these alterations. I did go ahead and make an entire new mock-up of the Corselette with the alterations that we made. So you can see I removed the wing here, and this is laying so much nicer. This is very smooth. I did move this point way back here, which means that the straps are going to be able to go over the shoulders here as opposed to coming up here. This side inset piece, and this I think will simply have to be tucked down, and I think that will work nicely. But this inset piece is falling a bit nicer with that straight cut. I did go ahead and make the back larger, and it's correct up here at the top. I could probably go in just a little since it is performance wear, but it's falling nicely there. The bottom for my hip area is still quite a distance there. I simply may need to alter the shape here or the shape here. The one thing I will say is you can see here, this still isn't great. I mean, it's not bad because it's going to be in performance wear, which means it's going to really be pulled taut, but it just, the cups aren't, they are not particularly deep cups. That's just how the pattern is. And so I feel a little bit like maybe I need to do just a tiny bit more work on the cup area, which will allow the portion underneath the cups to fall a bit nicer, to be smooth and come up underneath. I may inevitably make one more mock-up, or I might just kind of rip seams here and try to alter this particular mock-up. And if I can get things to truly fit nicely with this mock-up, then just utilize this actual piece as the new pattern. So we will see how that goes. I think I am done for tonight, but I am much, much happier with this particular mock-up than I was with the first. While we do still have some bunching here, it's not for, it's not because of poor sewing or because of having a difficult seam to inset. It's just because of how the material is falling on the mannequin. All right, my dears, I am back working on our corselet. We finished off overnight after I had put together the second mock-up. And so I've had a little bit of time to think about it, think about how I feel about it. I was very hesitant to just scrap it and start all over, but I was also hesitant to dive in and say that this was good enough, because this is a garment that I want to really truly be able to wear. I want this to be a piece that is my go-to undergarment for all of my vintage clothes, or at least vintage dresses. And I want it to fit well, feel good, and I want to be confident in it. And this isn't it. I really love this pattern on paper. I really like the drawing of it, and I wanted initially to be faithful to it. But I think unfortunately it just isn't working. We made our few alterations, and my hope was that very few alterations would be needed, and then we could move on and I would have a undergarment that was from the original pattern from the period. Unfortunately, I think if I were to proceed with the pattern as it is, it's something that I would really only wear for this episode. And so I want to walk through a few things with the pattern. One, I think Mrs. Depew's pattern worked beautifully. It was extraordinarily easy to draft, and I think it is extremely friendly for newer sewers. I don't think people who have never sewn anything before or who have never drafted anything would be able to jump in quite as easily, but I do think it's doable, and I think with just a little bit of help, it can definitely be done. For sewists who have been doing things for a while, I think they're going to see the little small idiosyncrasies that maybe aren't as great, and they'll be able to work with them and make really great alterations. And that is truly the case with any pattern. So I don't think this has to do with the original pattern or with Mrs. Depew's website. I think that's just the way patterns work. It's a one-stop shop. You get it, you draw it out, it's made to fit a specific person, and we're not all the same. So knowing how to make alterations or learning how to make them is really a wonderful thing if you are really interested in making clothes. If you are going to try this pattern, the Corselette, I would say if you are an A cup, no matter how you do this, if you're an A cup, this is actually probably going to work really beautifully for you, because the drafted pattern for the cups has just a small amount of curvature. It's going to come forward just a little bit. And if you are an A cup in your breast tissue, this is going to actually be very smooth on you, and it's going to be a nice look. If, however, you are anything above that, no matter really how much bigger you make these, it's not going to change the depth of the cup. It's just going to change the width of the cup. And so if you have more breast tissue, it's just not going to fit you as well. It would really be more like a sports bra. So in order for this to work for me, I am going to change out the cups. I do really still want this to be a period appropriate piece, and so I'm going to stick with the 3-cup or the 3-piece cup style, which was very classic of the time period. And the truth is, I know how to draft that. I've made 3-piece cups before. I've made my own brassieres before, and I have done them when I have been making costumes for plays and other productions. So I'm just going to go back to basics on this one. I am going to go ahead and set these aside and say this just doesn't work for my body type. Make the basic pattern that I already know how to make that is period appropriate, and see if we can't plug it into this corselet. I do not think I will really have to alter the top piece of the 3-piece set for this. I think the biggest problem is the cup fall on the bottom, which will allow the breast tissue to fall forward. So I'm going to start by altering these two pieces, and turn them into a shape that is extraordinarily common in brassieres that we make today. And instead of having them have straight lines here and a dip here, traditionally the way I was taught to make a 3-piece cup was you make your 3 points, and then you actually round the top, round the bottom, and round the side. And the other thing that I was taught that's a little different from this is kind of elongating out toward the sides of the breast in kind of a smiley face. And the way I was taught to do it was that the tallest point of the triangle is up toward the breast, and then the bottom is almost flat. So it really makes more of a traditional triangle with curved edges as opposed to this elongated triangle. So we'll make that traditional shape, and then we'll try to just pin it together. See if we can't pin it together and get it to fit into our original piece here, and see how it lays on the mannequin. Take my shirt off, see how it lays on me. And I would recommend that anytime you are making an undergarment, get it on your body. Get the mock-up on your body, because we all have little bits that fit a little bit differently here and there, and it's going to really make a big difference in the final fit for you. Let's mark this out, and let's see if we can't get a new workable pattern for the cups, and then see if we can't plug it into the corselet pattern, see if we can't finalize this pattern and get it done today. And now when we take a look at our new cup laid over the top of the corselet, you can see that the design of it matches the design of the original. However, when we come to the side, we're going to see there's a lot more space in the breast cup. So we're taking it basically like from an A breast cup probably up to about a C breast cup with this. And we were able to do that simply by changing the shape of these 2 pieces here. It's still a very traditional 3-piece cup, but we're going to have a lot more depth in the bottom portions of the cup. We are maintaining this curvature over here coming to the side in order to sweep the breast tissue up to the front to give a nice flattering figure. But we simply are going to have more room. And doing this is also going to allow this top portion, which we did not alter, this is the original, to come up here. You can see it's kind of coming up higher than the original, right? And that is going to also allow things to just lay a bit nicer and give full coverage. I'm much happier with this particular cup shape. I like this pattern better, and I do feel it is very true to the original style and the period. It just has a little bit more room for me. The last thing that I want to do before making the final iteration is we had talked about this. I don't love this. Even with the performance fabric, I think this is going to happen, and it's going to be I don't think it's going to be flattering. So in the original pattern, before we altered it, there had been the wings that came off of this centerpiece. We raised this side piece up when we took the wings off of the centerpiece in order to make up that distance. And the truth is, I'm actually not sure we needed to. I think if we pull that back up to the original, allow for it to have a deeper sweep underneath, we're going to get rid of this excess fabric here while maintaining this lovely diamond shape in the front. And so I think that's what we're going to do. And once we do all of that, guys, I think we're finally going to have a 1930s, 1940s corselet that is both period appropriate and fits really great. Alright, I have absolutely no evidence that this would have been used in the time period, but I would like to add some structure to the cups of my corselet. And since foam was not an option in the 30s and 40s, I'm going to do what any woman in the 30s and 40s would have done, and I'm going to go to my stash and use what I have available. This is quilter's cotton. It is batting that you would put in the middle of a quilt, and so it does have some structure and a little bit of depth. And so I'm going to make an additional insert with the exact same pattern for the cups out of this material to see if I can't give myself a little bit of structure in the cups. All right, let's talk about this pattern. Let's talk about this garment. Overall, I am very, very happy with how it turned out. There are a few things I would change in the future if I were to do it again. In particular, I would definitely change the material it is made out of. This is a performance wear and it is appropriate for this garment, but it didn't actually suck me in that much. And not that I'm looking for corset style tucking everything in, but I felt like it could have been a little bit better. A material that's closer to Spanx, for example. And I thought that this would do that, but this material was a little bit more stretchy than I was anticipating, a little bit more forgiving than I was anticipating. And so I think if I were to make this again, I would probably use a material that really had a little bit more of a tight feel to it. I did not make the straps on this particular garment adjustable because I was making it for myself and I just made it to my own measurements. I do think in the future, however, I would potentially make the garment adjustable just in the back, on the back strap, the same way a standard brassiere is made nowadays. I gave myself quite a bit of extra room in the back of this garment and I inevitably took almost all of it right back out. So I do have a center seam where I had not intended to have one. Happily, I can say I don't think it's very visible, and I don't think it will be visible through any garments that I wear this under. I do think this side seam turned out really nicely, nice and clean, nice and straight, and it did add just that little bit of extra breathing room for the hips, which I think is really important. This bottom piece here did flare out just a little bit, and I don't know exactly why. It could be my hem, it could be just that I've been playing with the material a lot over the last week or so getting this piece completed, and it's just a little bit stretched out. I think once it goes through the wash at least once, that will give me a better indication of exactly how it's going to inevitably fall. I did like that, just like in the pattern that is drawn, the front piece did come up just a little bit and the back did drop down a little bit for full coverage around the bottom area. I do think if I were to wear this under say a pencil skirt or a dress of that tight-fitting nature, it might creep up a little bit. That would not have been a problem in one of these garments originally in the 40s, because they would have come with clips on the bottom that were used to hold a lady's stockinette up. So I have a couple of possibilities that I could do with that. I could put a small band of silicone around the bottom, which might help it stick down, or I could go ahead and put clips down for stockings, and that might solve the problem. Keep the stockings up, keep the slip down. I did use batting, quilter's batting, to provide some additional structure for the cups and to make it so that it wasn't just breast tissue and thin fabric and then nothing else. I don't know that I would do it again. I liked that I had the little bit of an experiment, and it does work. I will definitely stay warm. You will not be able to see anything through my garment, but they didn't quite hold shape as nicely as I would have hoped, despite sewing it properly and so forth. I also sewed those inserts the same size as the cup itself, and I think I may have been better suited, especially in that material, to have made them smaller, created the two sections for the cup, and then slid it inside versus sewing it all together in kind of a sandwich type situation. The center diamond, which it's kind of puckering here on the mannequin, but it actually lays very nicely on me, and so I was very pleased about how that turned out. Overall, I do really like this garment. I will definitely wear it. I may add clips or a silicone bead to the bottom of it. But overall, I'm very happy. Again, if I were to make it again, I would probably change the material, but I would definitely make this one again. And I think, honestly, I will, because I would love to have a garment similar to this made out of a tan or a taupe material for wearing under lighter garments. So if you guys liked this video, liked this series of videos, please hit that like and subscribe button down below. I would love to have you along on my adventures in my sewing room and occasionally in my kitchen. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. Bye guys.